over Sam Darnold. I still think that Sam Darnold's got talent. I question how he's been coached the last few years and the supporting cast. But I'd like to see better players around Sam Darnold and use some of those picks to bring in players. Now, you might even, take that number 2 pick and get you a bonanza,
right,
as far as people moving up trying to get Justin Fields or another great player. So you can add to your arsenal by trading that pick to a team that's desperate.
Do you think, Jimmy, you'd never want to move up to get a quarterback if you were a Belichick or a good team, and then you don't move up far enough and somebody jumps you. So do you think the people that are interested in a quarterback and calling the Jets, do you think they'll do it now early or they'll wait until draft day? What would you suspect would happen?
I think they would wait until late because, the price just goes up the closer you get to the draft. You get other teams, bidding. Now, obviously, that's as far as the Jets are concerned. If you're one of the teams wanting to move up, if you can solidify a deal right now, then that's fine because it's going to be cheaper than if you wait until the draft.
Okay.
You get teams competing for that pick, the price is going to go up.
Jimmy, I'm watching Kansas City, and you had 3 or 4 great all-time teams in the NFL. You had several in college. And I said, I know your record's important, but I look at, when you get closer to the playoffs, I start looking at stuff like red zone stats. Are you situationally good? And I look at Kansas City, and I can see him facing a Derrick Henry or a Cleveland offensive line or the Colts, and I can see that Patrick Mahomes sitting on the sideline watching the game. I do think they're really vulnerable. Do you?
I was asked on the show yesterday as far as who's the biggest threat to Kansas City. And, you might say, well, Buffalo, because Buffalo's really hot right now. Their quarterback is playing great. You might say Tennessee because of the way they run the football and they can control the clock, control the game. But I think the biggest threat to Kansas City is really Kansas City. Brett Veach, I talked to him just not too long ago. He wanted me to autograph a picture that we took when they were here at the Super Bowl with Brett and Andy Reid. And I told him, I said, yeah, you are looking great. He said, as long as we stay healthy, he said, we'll be fine. And that's what I believe. If they're healthy and if they're prepared and if they're not overconfident, if they understand who they're playing and the strength of their opponent, they'll be fine. They're the best. They're the most talented team in the NFL. And when you have a quarterback like that, Terry Bradshaw called me this morning. He said, I watched Mahomes. He said, it's unbelievable some of the throws that he makes and some of the things he does. He's just such a special talent.
Yeah. So I watched the Miami Dolphins yesterday, a franchise you coached in an area and a team, and you know a lot of people in that organization. And I got to tell you, Jimmy, Brian Flores, this team reminds me of Belichick early in New England with Brady. They win a lot of 2016 ugly. They're resourceful.
Yep.
Yesterday, they were missing 4 of their top 5 scrimmage yard performers. Players become more replaceable. And Tua, like an early Brady, is coachable. He doesn't turn the ball over. I think we got a hit. Maybe am I being a little hyper here, but I think Brian Flores, I watch him. Jimmy, I see Belichick.
Yeah, I spent some time with him this offseason, and I was thoroughly impressed. Their team, they play so hard. He gets tremendous effort out of his players. He's got a bunch of young guys, a lot of players that nobody's ever heard of,
right?
That are really performing, and he's getting the most out of his players. And that's what Bill did in his great run. Is a lot of the players that other teams might not even want, he made them productive. He was able to utilize, certain guys that could do maybe one thing, and he could put them in the ball game and let him do that one thing. And so Brian, he learned well from Bill. And then on the other side, that's going to be a struggle up there at New England. But New England's got a bunch of cap money. They've got some opt-outs that are going to be coming back next year, but they still got to find them a quarterback.
Yeah, and they're not very dynamic on the offensive side, at least on the perimeter. They could use some speed. So I said this, and I said this about 2 years ago. I said sometimes young quarterbacks come into this league, and if they have a star receiver, it feels like they feel like they need to appeal to him. And I totally get. I'm not blaming anybody, but I watch Baker without OBJ. Jimmy's like a different player. Did you ever have a situation like that?
No. Michael Irvin wanted it to be like that, but I wouldn't let him. I made sure that Troy threw the ball other places. Yeah, and I heard what you said about Baker, and yes, a lot of it is on Baker as far as when he had OBJ, but also the play caller. The play caller is going to design plays for his star receiver. Well, the only thing is the opponent knows that as well. And so they're going to do some things to take away your star receiver. If you actually just take the approach, especially if you have balance with your receivers and your tight end, if you take the approach, you just take what the defense gives us and not try to force the ball to any one player, you're going to be much better off, and that's what we're seeing with Baker Mayfield.
Should a team like... Did you ever have a great team that had a bad late-season loss? Like, I like the Rams a lot. That's a clunker yesterday. Should I take... early in the season, the Colts lost to the Jags, but it's September, it's week 1. I don't worry. They're a different team. Do late-season losses concern you, Jimmy?
No, but I'll give you an example. The last loss that I ever had in Dallas was, really a heartbreaker. We were playing the Miami Dolphins in the snow, and, of course, the game. The Leon Lett touches the field goal. And we had the better team. We were favored. We were at home. But because of the snow and because of the mistake that we made in the kicking game, we lost the game. But that was the last loss that I ever had in Dallas. We went right ahead and won the rest of the season, won every game, and won the Super Bowl. So I think you can bounce back from that. I don't think the Rams look at this loss to the Jets and say, "Oh, we've got a bad team." It's just one of those things that happen. Hey, let's rally back. Let's correct our mistakes. We're a good football team, and let's go forward.
As a coach, finally, Jimmy Johnson, the Hall of Famer, there are some things, Jimmy, that are correctable. And then I wonder if there are mistakes that you just know as a coach, we just don't have the personnel. I look at Pittsburgh, they play tonight, right? And I say to myself, Jimmy, Ben, because of that surgery, can't throw the ball deep. I don't think it's correctable. I don't think people fear him going over the top. I think it's hurting their running game. Now, that's my perception. Is that a correctable flaw? Are there things as a coach you just tell your coaches, not publicly, guys, this is what we are right now?
I don't think that they can accept that. I looked at the Steelers back before they lost the last couple of games, and every route was a 4-yard route. Everything was underneath, and it was a dink and dunk, to get rid of the ball in 2 seconds. And, I said before they even lost games, I said, teams that are talented, they're going to crowd those receivers. They're not going to let them throw those little 4- and 5-yard routes and those bubble screens. And if they do that, then they're going to have a running game, or they're going to have to throw it deep. I think, as far as the coaching staff with the Steelers, they've got to force the ball deep. They've got to force, even if it's less than 3 yards a carry, they've got to run the football. They cannot just go into every game saying we're going to throw 3- and 4-yard routes and win the game. You get up against good teams in the playoffs, that's not going to work. So they've got to have some balance offensively.
Jimmy John.
By the way, I got a pretty good. Hey, 2 of my favorite players right here.
Who? Oh,
Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas.
Look at your handsome brother.
I noticed it right away.
You noticed it?
Jimmy's family.
Jimmy's family. I love that. Coach, great seeing you. Have a great holiday, Jimmy.
Okay, Merry Christmas, Colin. Enjoy.
All right. Well, Jimmy's kind of with me on this. Is that Sam Darnold, Justin Fields?
He's right.
I think I just built
that game did not do Justin Fields any favors.
No, and maybe against Clemson, we all go, okay. But it's like the gap between Justin and Sam, wouldn't I rather just keep Sam, build a fortress of picks, and if Sam stinks next year, it's just 1 year in the big picture, then you go get another guy, and then the next kid, the new coach gets to pick who he wants for a system, and it's a better group of players.
I mean, it's not going to sound sexy to Jets fans, but it's probably the more prudent thing to do.
Right.
But this all hinges on how he plays in this.
It really
playoff
does.
game.
Like if he throws up a stinker, let's say Clemson rolls Ohio State, I think the Jets are like, we're keeping Sam Darnold. I think you would. Coming up next, Brady, what I predicted and what he's become. Pretty interesting. Plus Colin right, Colin wrong, top of next hour. Cinderella stories are always great in sports. The underdog, the little company, the little engine that could. You know, it's emotional goosebump stuff. That is Pure Talk USA, which is simply smarter wireless. The big dogs, the Verizons, T-Mobiles, AT&T, they're going to gouge you for data and perks you don't need or don't use. Pure Talk won't. It's $20 a month. That's it. Unlimited talking, unlimited texting, 2 gigs of data, $20 a month. You don't have to change your phone or your number. In fact, the coverage is the same. It's on one of the towers of the big dogs. I'll give you an additional 50% off your first month. Grab your phone and dial pound 250 and say Colin Cowherd. Dial pound 250 and say Colin Cowherd. Simply smarter wireless. Why pay for data and perks?